100%.
All right, so I'm here with Matt Hagan, 4-time NHRA funny car champion.
Yeah,
Pretty crazy, right?
Well, I guess so when you kind of put it like that. But it's been a wild ride, you know. I mean, for me, this is my 19th year in a fuel funny car. Been drag racing since I was like 13 years old, right? So it's been a wild, you know, kind of crazy ride. Right place, right time. You know, kind of getting into the groove of things, but never really would have dreamed that I would be, you know, in this situation today. Never really set out here to be like a professional drag racer. Just kind of something that evolved into what it is today and kind of happened. So very blessed, you know, but how it come to be is just kind of wild as well, you know. So it's kind of, you kind of ride the wave while you can ride it.
Of course, I mean, that's a pretty cool wave to ride.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fast wave, right?
I can only imagine. So 300 plus, right?
Yeah, so actually my boss, Tony Stewart, he's my teammate as well. Well, kind of teammate now with Leah being my real teammate, you know, his wife. He went 340 yesterday, you know, so that's ripping out there in a dragster, and
crazy.
1,000 feet.
I was to say 340 to 1,000 feet is
wild.
You
know, and what's wild is we used to run to a quarter mile, and I know there's so many diehards out there that basically are like, oh, well, you know, 1,000 feet, you know, but you got to understand, like, these cars are going so fast now that the tracks were built back when people were trying to run 200 miles an hour, and now we're like 340, and you still have the same amount of shutdown, right? So, you know, it takes a half a mile for these cars to shut down, and so folks that are like, oh, it's not real, you know, drag racing because it's not real quarter mile, well, they've never been on fire and like can't see the finish line and where you're at, and you know, you want every inch of racetrack that you can get to slow these things down. So I understand the diehard side of it, but I also have been in that situation where you're kind of like, I'm glad I had every inch of shutdown that I've been able to get these cars stopped before. So
yeah.
But yeah, they're wild, they're crazy. I mean, I think that it's one of those things where, you know, if you think it ain't going to happen to you, you probably shouldn't be in the car because eventually it's going to. You know, I opened up my locker the first time I started driving for Don Schumacher, and there was 4 fire suits in there, and I was kind of like, why is there 4 fire suits? And they're like, you're going to be on fire, you know. So yeah, it puts it in perspective real quick. But they're crazy, they're wild, they're dangerous, but they're really cool to drive, right? Like, it's like being a bull rider, you know, you get to get on something you don't know what it's going to do every weekend, right?
Like, so, unpredictable.
You
definitely never know from off the hit if it's going to shake the tires, if it's going to do whatever, and like you better just buckle up. You're along for the ride, right?
Hang on tight, put your mouthpiece in, pull down tight, and get ready for a ride.
Exactly. Yeah. So Gator Nationals this weekend. How are we feeling? Like, how did testing go? Like, how are we feeling going into this?
Testing went really well. I've had some really great test sessions. I've had some really bad ones, you know, and it's just one of those things where my new crew chief, Mike Knutson, he's kind of got a little different approach. He really was really concerned about saving parts, and we had some valve train issues last year. We blew up 6 times last year. So when you put this in perspective, when it goes boom, it's usually $50,000 to $100,000, right? So every time we make a run, on a good run, it costs about $7,000 to make a pass, just because the parts, nutrition, and, you know, just the pistons and the rods and the you know, the clutch disc and the valves and the, you know, the blower belts and you name it. I mean, it eats them alive, right? So you're just putting new parts in the car all the time on a good run. And so some test sessions you go, hey, we need to learn everything we can, but we need to only get to half track, because a lot of 8th mile stuff, we learn pretty much everything. Sometimes you'll take it a little farther because of the fuel system and different things like that, but you learn majority of what you need to by the 8th mile. So this year in testing, I haven't been to the finish line. So, I mean, I'm trying, sometimes you got to, you know, obviously you're throwing parachutes and doing different things and your timing and all that kind of stuff. So I told my crew chief, we got done testing, and we did last week, and we came in and tested the last 2 days, and the session went great, you know. So I'm really excited about our opportunity and chances here at the Gator Nationals, but it's kind of like you still got to get in a routine. So I was like, don't be mad if I throw the chutes a little early or something like that.
That's what you've been doing, right? So you're like, this is weird, I haven't ran it all the way out. So,
so you want to get in the groove a little bit, but I mean, after 19 years, if I don't have a groove, then I probably, you know, need to check it, you know, try something different, right? But it's I've been so blessed, though. I mean, kind of getting back to 19 years of this, I've been able to keep the majority of my guys for 15 years, and that's unheard of out here. Now
that's amazing.
Yeah, now we got them to where they're signing contracts and they're guaranteed money and they're coming back, and no other team out here in the sport does that except for Tony Stewart Racing. And it's because we know we have good people, right? And
awesome.
Good people are hard to find, and that's really been the heart of my success. I've been able to win 4 championships and 55 races, and be out here. But it's not because of me; it's because of the group of people that I have around me. And like they truly come in early, they leave late, they work hard, they're motivated, they're driven, they're just so goal oriented kind of folks, and it's just kind of one of those things that it drives me to be better. So it's a good thing. It's just really cool to have a great group of guys around you.
It really does. I think it becomes like a family. Just somebody who's been in the drag racing industry. Like, these people, you wake up, like, you live, you sleep, you breathe with them, like, you're on the road with them for such a long time. They become your family.
They really do, And what's really cool about our family is, like, our fans are a family too, right?
Sure.
So you have every ticket is a pit pass, and I think that's what people don't realize is, like, obviously with the drag racing side of things, like, it's so engaged with our fans. It's so open. Like, you buy a GA ticket and you get to come in there, and it's like you get to be at the pitch, you get to be at the ropes, you get the autographs, you get to see the guys wrenching on the car, and I think that's what sets our sport apart from everyone else. It's so fan accessible to the drivers, to the crew guys, to the like, it was so funny. I was warming the car up the other day, and these 2 guys you could tell it was their first time because they were standing right behind the car, and all the nitro hits them, right? And they're just, eyes are watering.
I would say nose is running, crying,
And so they looked at each other and were like, I didn't know these things ran on mace, So it was kind of, I just got such a kick out of that. It was so cool because people don't know what to expect their first time,
No. And like you said, to kind of like go back to what I was going to ask you, is coming up with Gator Nationals, like, what would you tell, like, people who've never been, or people that maybe it's been a couple years they haven't been, like, why should they come out this weekend?
Bring your earplugs, first of all. It's a great family event as well. I mean, we got a lot of moms that come out and bring their kids, so don't think it's just this male-driven deal where, only all the guys get together. But we have so many moms come out, so many kids come out, and, it's just one of those things where, it's so loud at sensory overload. We had some seismologists come out, and it's a 2.3 on the Richter scale when 2 fuel cars leave the line.
Is it really?
Small earthquake, yeah. So you can imagine, like, the shock wave and being, how do you tell somebody that you can sit in the top of the stands, and when the fuel cars leave, the shock wave that hits you shakes every organ in your body, right? I mean, it's hard to explain that to somebody. They're like, what do you mean? And so they get there, they see it, they smell it, they feel it. They get to see the cars run 340 miles an hour. It's incredible, So sit here and tell you about it, but until you see it, then you can appreciate it more on TV. And it's it's cool that we're here every year. It's something that people can plan on. They plan their whole vacations around. They come out, they camp out, they do the whole thing, and it's just it's neat to be involved with that.
It's cool. I actually was kind of trying to explain to some of my guys earlier that I was like, you don't understand that. I was like, it vibrates every organ that's in your body. I was like, it will blur your vision. I was like, if you have never been, I was like, there's a term we always like to say, people have been baptized by nitro.
Right.
So if you get that chance to be on a starting line and literally be behind these just absolute monsters of horsepower, it's really, really cool.
No, it is cool. And it's, it's something that, you only get to experience when NHRA rolls into town. There's just nothing else like it. I've been able to drive monster trucks and drag boats and skydive and you name it. Like, I've been blessed. Someone's like, hey, come do this, and I'm like, all right. Only thing I've ever turned down was a land speed car, and it was just like, that's really small and narrow, and it's like 600 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and I was
like, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, so, but everything else I usually say yes to, and it's just kind of, there's been no replacement for standing on the pedal on a fuel funny car, and it's because they're such short wheelbase and they have so much power and so much torque. It's 80,000 foot-pounds of torque. So put this in perspective. So, like, if you have a 5,500 Dodge Dually that's just like ripping, man, you got it spooled up and everything's going, those things are making 400 or 500 pounds of torque. This is 80,000 foot-pounds of torque, right? My Hellcat Durango, ripping, it's like, I think it's like, I don't know, 115 foot-pounds of torque, you know what I mean? Like,
so the perspective is crazy.
It's crazy. 80,000.
So horsepower and torque of that, this is what you choose to voluntarily strap yourself into, and like in 1,000 feet, just let it rip.
That fine line between bravery and stupidity, I think, is a great way to say it, right? But it's so much fun. And just to be able to turn wind lights on, right? Like, that's what people don't put in perspective. I've raced against billionaires out here, and you think, so, wow, we can just buy this, you know what I mean? You come in and you think, well, if we had all the money in the world, then we can buy the winds, and it doesn't happen like that. It's a group of people that have one common goal, and it all comes together. And you see 4 Win comes on Sunday, and that's one thing. But then when you have an opportunity to win a championship and it all comes together, it's just incredible, and it's something no one can ever take away from you. You know? So,
and those in that blood, sweat, and tears that everybody pours into it, those moments. I've been parts of those moments, and it's crazy. The dog piles on the starting lines, that everybody crying, there's whatever, and waiting for your driver to get back. It's just
it's
there's
cool.
not really words you can put into.
And that's
like
what
that.
I get our social media folks to really. I'm like, hey, capture that starting line, because I don't get to see that in the car, right? Like I'm 300 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's one of the things
right?
you miss all that because you're in the so it's kind of
it's cool to see.
Yeah, there's a give and a take of being the driver and then being the person that works on it of what you kind of get to see or what you miss out on.
Yeah, the just the camaraderie with everybody and all the hard work that's put in there is really cool. But it's really cool to see our fans enjoy it too. That's the one thing that I do is that not a lot of other drivers I've seen do is I always stay over. And you wouldn't believe how many fans have never touched a Wally before, like one of our trophies.
Yep. And
just to be able to, we come back after we won the race, and you have a pile of people that are standing there on the starting line that, you go do your interview, and they want to just take a picture or just, be a part of that, and to be able to pass your trophy around. I get so upset because the media, they get on me, and they're like, we got to go up here, and we got to get our quotes out, and we got to get our, I'm like, you guys can come down to us down here, and, we're actually the ones that the fans are the ones that are supporting this, and so I get kind of like the media guys give me a hard time because I didn't run up there and get my quotes out so they can get their quotes out, and but it's our fans that are staying there, and the folks that'll come back and be like, oh my gosh, I've never been able to hold a Wally, and I got to take a picture, and they bring the picture back for you to sign the next year and all that kind of stuff.
Isn't that cool?
It really is.
You have those moments too when it's which I always say too, it's always great. The younger kids or whatever, this is we should show them all this. This is how our sport's not going to die. So to
absolutely
let a little kid sit in a funny car or to do something like that, those are those moments that kid's going to remember forever. And then they're going to wind up and be like, I want to be a drag racer once I get older.
Yeah,
so those moments are really cool.
They really are. It really puts in perspective. Just one moment out of your day changes someone's life forever.
1,000%. I couldn't agree more.
That's cool.
So I was going to touch on a little bit. So how do you feel with Leah obviously coming back? It's got to be pretty awesome. She's jumping back in the driver's seat, obviously from a female. Leah's an idol for women that are in motorsport, so I was really happy to see she was jumping back in the seat. So how do you feel about getting your teammate back?
I think it's great. Leah's been a great teammate for a long time. We've been Dodge teammates for forever, and she does a great job with the sport. Obviously, with bringing that whole feminine side into the equation, and she's just a great mom with Dom. Get to see him at the track, and her cool. Her taking those 2 years off to become a mother has been great. And me and Tony. And Tony is my boss, but I look at him as more of a friend. If he fired me tomorrow, so what? You know what I mean? Life's going to go on. I'm still going to cut up with the guy and give him a hard time. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of one of those things where, to see him be able to have that experience as become a new dad and to be in the sport and still be racing. And, and I told Tony, he was talking about it. He's a little older, to be a dad and stuff like that. I said, but dude, most people have, when they're having kids, they're still trying to make a living, and they're just, they don't have time for the kids and all. I was like, man, you've made your living, and now you get to enjoy this kid, and bring him to the racetracks and be a part of this. And it's just really cool to see, and to have her be a teammate again and have both of them racing, and be able to go out and find funding for both of those cars, and and still be able to keep the funny car side of stuff going with what I'm doing. It's been great. So when working with Tony has been great. Tony's a great guy. I always tell everybody he's a really good rich dude. You know what I mean? He's awesome. He's one of those guys that he really goes out of his way to help everybody. I've seen him use his plane to help. Fly. I had a car chief that his kid was in ICU and put him on a plane and send him over there.
That's really
obviously.
Cool.
Anytime, the only time I've ever seen Tony sideways was we had a guy that a crew guy, and he lost his grandfather. He got murdered in Mexico, and so my crew chief at the time was trying to handle the situation, not bother Tony with it, and Tony came up in there and he was just like, what is going on, and why wasn't I involved with? He's like, if we can help his family or do anything like that, then I want to be a part of it. These guys are family to me. We want to take care of these guys, so and that's really the only time I've ever seen him really kind of sideways, and it was just because we didn't involve him and allow him to help in any way that he could with the situation that was going on.
But that's amazing that he's got such a big heart and he's willing to help people out like that. That's great.
Yeah.
And not to mention, Dominic's got pretty cool mom and dad. Let's just be honest. Like, that's
it's hard
pretty
to
cool.
top right there.
Yeah, like that's a pretty cool way to be like, so hey, what do your parents do?
Yeah.
So he's gonna have a pretty cool life growing up.
Absolutely. I'm sure he'll get the opportunity to race anything, and he might not want to race anything. You know what I mean?
Know.
So you never know. I mean,
I'm sure he'll have that opportunity.
Who knows? You know, he might want to be an architect or something.
Probably
going to end up a race car driver, though, right?
Who knows how that'll probably work?
That's right.
So we're gonna kind of like pivot, I guess,
Sure.
a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about you. So, talking about how did you decide, Matt?
Wow.
Oh my gosh, like how did you fall into this career and decide like I want to be a drag racer when I grow up?
Yeah, you know, it kind of something that happened. I had a friend, an older guy. He was kind of like a second dad to me. He's one of them guys that, as you got older, would sneak you beer and different things like that. But
right,
drag racer.
Yeah, cool.
But anyway, when I was younger, he had a '69 Dart. I actually owned the car. It's a gear jammer. I mean, this thing would stand up on his back wheel on the bumper. You know, it's jamming gear. Second gear, you're pulling blue sky, and you're just looking at it. And I saw that at 13. I was like, oh man, that's so cool.
That looks cool, right?
Yeah. And so he let me come over and air his tires up and ride his dial in on the car and cool the motor down and wipe everything down. And I just thought it was awesome, you know. And so I didn't have a car, but I had a four-wheeler. And on Thursdays, you could bracket race your four-wheeler. And sure enough, I brought mine out there and beginner's luck or whatever. The first time I went to the final, I didn't win, but I won like $130. And I was hooked from there.
You're like, this is cool. I can race up and have fun and win some money. This is cool, right?
And so my dad had a car lot. So I started stealing. As soon as I turned 16, I started stealing cars off of his used car lot.
Okay.
And I would bring them back with no transmission in them, and
oh
he was
my gosh,
so
that's
he was like, well, "What is
crazy.
going on?" And he's like, "I got to sell these things." So anyway, helped me get a little foot brake car, a little Chevy 2 Nova with a slapstick. It had a 406. It was like board 30 over, and did that with the foot brake category. And one thing just kind of led to another, and you know, I just started wanting to go faster and faster. And I bought this old Trans Am that looked like I cut my kid's swing set up with. You know what I mean? I had no business being in it, but
awesome.
and I started racing these races that were like, you know, the quickest, fastest 8 cars to show up. It didn't matter how fast you were or how slow you were, but they took the top 8 cars,
sure.
and we raced each other. And so we called these things these quick 8s. And so I started running all up and down the East Coast, running these quick 8s. And it was more about how you set your car up and could get it down these really, really rough, really tough.
I was gonna say probably
racetracks.
Crazy tracks, probably that probably were not safe. Probably
walls, right?
Yeah.
And so it was really more or less your setup on your cars. And I started doing that and winning like these crazy amounts of cash. You know, $50,000-$60,000 in cash. And you know, and you're a teenager, and you're going like, okay, well, we can make a business plan out of this,
right?
You know?
Exactly. This is a pretty cool way to make some money, right?
Yeah. So I started running up and down the East Coast doing that for a little bit. Got some sponsors, and my sponsor at the time called me up, and he was like, "Look, the pro mod stuff is great, and what you're doing is awesome, and you're helping promote our product, but I want you in a Fuel Funny car." And I was like, "Mr. No, I don't know if I want to go that fast." And he was like, "Well, you know, you're 19 years old now at the time." And he's like, "I got $3 million to throw at it." And he's like, "If you don't take it, I'm going to give it to somebody else." You know, and I was like, "Well, I'm going to take your money." So figured that out, owned my own team for a little bit. And doing so in a fuel car, I crossed over. I was running the IHRA series. I crossed over to NHRA, and I outqualified Forrest Selzy and Tommy Johnson Jr. at Indy, which is the biggest race of the year for us.
Yeah.
And Don Schumacher came into my pit, and he said, "Who are you, and what's the deal?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm just trying to be here, you know, and just hang out and have some fun, race a few races." He said, "Well, Gary Selzy's retiring." He said, "Why don't you, you know, sell all your stuff and come drive my stuff?" And at the time, it seemed like a really good idea. So, you know, fast forward 13 years later, after a couple championships, Don was, you know, kind of downgrading and getting sick. He had some cancer and different things. And Tony Stewart, you know, started dating Leah and wanted to start his own team. And he says, "Well, why don't you quit over here and come drive my stuff?" And I said, "Well, sound like a good idea." So here we are, you know, and won a championship for Tony and won several for Don. And it's been good, but, you know, kind of right place, right time. It's just kind of like
the cards just aligned. Like that's pretty cool.
Pretty wild.
So something I'll ask you. So from being a drag racer, what do you feel like is the biggest hurdle that you face? Is it physically? Is it financially? Is it mentally? Like what's
absolutely,
you know?
financially. I think that's the hardest part for most people to start. I think the you know, I get a lot of young racers that come to me and they say, "Well, how do we even get going, you know, because it takes so much money. And I would tell everyone, like, the biggest thing that I've learned out here in the last 20 years that I've been doing this is it's the B2B business, right? So the business to business, if you can just find one sponsor, just find one person that wants to spend some money with you, and that's hard to do, period. But you know, that's usually like the first. But no matter how small that sponsor is, you figure out who they're doing business with, or who they're making parts and pieces from. No different than like back in the day, I put together a Mopar and Pennzoil deal, and we're obviously sponsored by Mobil One now. But back then, being a direct pour with Mopar was massive amounts of vehicles, you know. So being able to sit them down and say, hey, look, you guys are going to make millions, and you guys are going to save millions, and putting that B2B relationship together. After that, it didn't matter whether the race car did well or not. It mattered how much money they were going to make and save, right? So finding that one sponsor that you can go in there and say, no different when I was with New Holland. Basically, you know, they helped me up because I farm at home and do a lot of that stuff. We got 3,000 acres there and 1,800 head of cattle that we run. But being able to bring them into the sport, well, they have 4 manufacturing plants in the sport. So back then we had Sandvik as basically a tooling and a CNC deal. Putting them together and saying, hey, look, you can build your parts and pieces with Sandvik, and then the cutting tools, and then the cutting oil, and then, you know, one thing kind of leads to another. And once you do that and you sit these big players down and you're able to show them, hey, look, you're going to save this percentage on this, and if you buy this from them, you know, so that kind of stuff. And I think that's where most racers don't understand, like, how to do some of that. They think, well, it's just a sticker and a smile and I'm supposed to go out here and win all this. It's so really the behind the scenes stuff, and being able to figure out ways to make your partners grow and save money or make money with other partners. And if you can do that, I think you'll be out in the sport a long time. And that's really kind of what I found is being able to put those people together. The race car is a great tool for everyone to root around, but at the end of the day, you're going to be out there doing that a long time if you can make money for somebody.
Of course. And I always tell everybody, like, sponsorships, fundings, all that, like, that's a job in itself. A lot of people really don't realize how much really goes into that behind the scenes stuff, like you mentioned. It
really does, you know. And I think if you can get those kind of going and flowing, then it's kind of like that's the first stepping stone. But that's usually the biggest challenge, because most people can learn the driving, they can learn the talent, you know, and rising to the occasion and winning and turning win lights on. But just having the funding to do that is always a challenge.
Very cool. All right, so something a little bit more fun. So before the race, do we have like a race ritual? Do we have a hype song, like a favorite snacky that we have before the race? Like, what do you do, Matt?
Well, the biggest thing that I do is obviously just kind of like, I'm kind of superstitious of just putting my gear on the same all the time. But it's more of a checklist that I do in my in my mind to make sure that everything's on right.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
But still, like, I always put, you know, my left glove on first and right glove, and then same with shoes and everything else. And there's like a certain pair of underwear I like to wear and stuff like that. So,
all right, got it.
Yeah,
lucky pair of underwear, right?
Yeah, that kind of thing.
I like
so
it.
A little bit of superstitious, but a lot of times you make your own luck out there, and you're obviously creating situations where you have to rise to the occasion. I think the biggest thing that I would tell someone that's new in the sport or wants to be in any type of competition is that you look at most athletes, you know, college, top level, professional athletes. They're very gifted, talented in some way, shape, or form, or they wouldn't be there. But what separates the great ones is their mental game, right? Like, and most people don't know how to work on their mental game. I think everybody gets up, they go to the gym, they want to eat right, they work hard every day, but no one takes the time to really work that mental game. And the mental game, you can apply to life, you can apply to business, you apply to your relationships, all those type of things. And, you know, when people get into pressure situations, they're like, oh no, I don't want to mess this up, or this is so much pressure. They get nervous instead of looking at that like, this is the time that I've been waiting on. This is my moment, and I get to rise to that occasion. And this is what I've been waiting on and what I've been working for. And so instead of that being a pressure situation, it's something that you're excited about, and you get to really kind of, you know, rise to that top. But also talking, like if you walk by my car and I'm sitting there in the stage, I'm talking to myself. I'm telling myself what I want to happen. I'm seeing it. I'm thinking about it. You know, the whole deal. And it's just kind of like, that guy's a crazy person, but it's just kind of like the things that work for me. And working on that mental game every day. But that also applies to life, allowing, you know, only talking about positive things and bringing positive energy into things and seeing it, feeling it, making it happen, and putting it out in the universe. I
was going to say,
crazy.
You speak it into existence. Like I tell a lot of people that, like, it's I think we all have those moments, but you really do. You have to just kind of like focus on the positivity. It's easier to focus on the negative and things like that, but that really does drain your just mental well-being and things like that. So really having to just keep yourself in a mentally healthy spot.
There's a great book called Mind Gym, and it's got a guy sprinting on the front of it, and it was actually one of the first things that I lost the championship, and I was kind of in a bad headspace, and I got to reading this book, and it's a sports psychologist, but he basically worked with all types of athletes, golfers, tennis players, football players, pitchers, hitters, all that kind of stuff, and wrote this book. And it broke it down in such a sports side of things that like my brain could wrap it around it, and it was great. And it was a quick, real easy read for me, but it changed my whole outlook of how I approach situations and pressure-filled situations and different things like that. I wanted to work with the guy so bad. I kept emailing him, and his wife finally emailed me back, and he's like, he's been dead for years. Like, please stop emailing. And I felt so bad.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy.
but that's like I wanted to be was someone that had that type of level, that worked with that many athletes.
Wanted somebody to know, like, hey, like this book like resonated with me.
Absolutely.
Like this clicked with me.
Yeah.
So that's actually really cool. I'll have to keep that in mind, because that would actually be a really cool one to read.
Yeah.
Favorite racetrack?
Favorite racetrack? We used to be Denver. Like, we're not racing at Denver anymore. But
I know. I loved Vandermeer. Like, Vandermeer was one of my favorite racetracks. I was so heartbroken when I heard that it was going to get shut down.
I was so blessed to go out on a high note with Vandermeer. I won everything that we could win there the weekend that was the last race. We qualified number one. We won the Too Fast, Too Tasty. We won the race. Well, I was able to get 2 trophies there. We gave away the Vandermeer Speedway Trophy and the NHRA Trophy. It was my sponsor's race. They sponsored the race. So I think we did everything but go under the bleachers and pick up all the coins that people dropped out of their pockets, So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That's definitely a memorable race.
It's a good way to end on that one. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be there again one day in Denver.
I hope so.
But you never know. But at least we went out in style on that one.
There you go. You can't go wrong with that. I know you don't obviously have a lot of downtime, free time when you're in the midst of at the racetrack and anything, but like, what other class do you tend to watch outside of Funny Car?
Yeah, Pro Mod, because I did that for 6 years, right? So
yes, I love it. I was hoping you were going to say Pro Mod. I'm a Pro Mod girly too. I love door cars. There's something about a door car going over 200 miles an hour. That's just like, that's one of my happy little spots. They got that
nostalgia feel to them. They're all like, you just feel like, even your parents can relate to it because they grew up back then, when it was all. But, for me, I drove a screw blower, I drove, a roots blower, and I had a nitrous car. But that got back into my roots of that quick 8 stuff. Like a lot of times we had a nitrous car and we'd run up and down the East Coast and doing that kind of stuff. Yeah. But still got so much love for the Pro Mod side of things, and would be one today if we had more time to do it.
I'm sure. Yeah, Pro Mod is just something really cool. I'm glad that obviously over the last coming years they've actually gotten like the TV time and all that, which has been great for Pro Mod to finally be on TV, which has been really, really awesome. Yeah, Pro Mods are definitely really, really cool. So you kind of had mentioned earlier, so in obviously off season, things like that. So mentioned farming, a whole bunch of I know you've got cattle stuff, you've got a whole bunch of
I just bought a beef jerky company, and so I'm giving Slim
That's
Jim
what I was about to ask. I was so you're doing that, right?
Doing some of that, and kind of one of those things where I had I've kind of been slowing down my I guess kind of meat company where we were shipping meat, small butcher box kind of theme kind of deal across the country, but so much overhead, so much dry ice and overnight shipping and so I'm getting more into the dry goods space kind of thing, where beef jerky and Slim Jim kind of deal, a beef stick,
everybody loves those, quick little snacky you can run around with.
So that's been good. Been doing some of that. We went in and bought that company this year, and got 25 people that work there, and they've been great and been a huge learning process. It's like peeling an onion apart. It's just like, where are we ever going to get to the center, right?
Yeah. So very cool.
But that's been great. So that's kind of been the focus of this year, getting the beef sticks up and running and moving forward. But I've been farming for 15 years, first generation farmer. Went out and took a $4 million loan out, and was like, I'm going to buy land and buy equipment and buy cattle and all this kind of stuff. And then my dad looked at me, because he's a car salesman, and he was like, you just hate money or what? You know what I mean? But
funny
it's
how that works out.
The older I get, the smarter I realize he is, because he gets to wash them and put gas in them and they don't die. You know what I mean?
There you go. Makes sense.
But I truly enjoy farming. It's something that I'll do till the day I'm not physically able to anymore. It's what we do on the weekends is so adrenaline filled. It's so fast paced. You're dealing with so many people, and you're traveling and you're in hotel rooms and this and that, and it's just on TV and all the stuff that goes along with it. But then you get back home and you get to just slow that down, and you just throw your phone in the truck, and you just kind of like, you know, turn life off for a second, you know. So very, very humbling, very like something spiritual about it, something that you plant crops, and you watch, you know, cattle have calves, and, you know, you get to raise those out, and it's just something wholesome about it, that you just get back to nature, and you get, you know, opportunity to just kind of reset, you know, and that really is, it feels good.
That's
you know?
what I was going to ask you. It's probably got to be a little bit of like a peace of mind for you, just kind of a reset to kind of get away from all like just the crazy hustle and bustle, and just have some time to just reflect on you, and just be like, hey, this is like just my little like me time.
Yeah, it is, you know, and it's so nice, and to be able to take the kids out there on the side by side and run them around, and watch them play in the creeks and play with snakes and turtles and all, you know,
like
all
just
stuff.
Fun stuff, just being a kid,
being
right?
a kid, right? You know, being able to grow up on a farm, and, you know, all that kind of stuff is just has been incredible. So very, very blessed and all that.
Very, very, very cool. So one last question I'll probably say. So the average person does not get to know what it feels like to go over 300 miles per hour in a little less than 4 seconds in 1,000 feet. If you had to describe that or tell people, like, how does that feel? Can you even put it into words?
It's like getting kicked in the chest by a mule. You know what I mean? Like, you're just pinned. You know what I mean? And the G-force. Actually, you know, we pull close to 6 Gs on a run, and almost -7 Gs when the parachutes come out. So I look really young for a little while, and then I look really old. But I think the really old part's sticking too much. You know? So
I think you're good. I think you're fine.
But it's incredible. I mean, like, those cars never quit digging. And I mean, in the G-force that you experience, everybody thinks it's at the hit of the throttle that we see the most, but actually it's in the middle of the racetrack. When these cars make over 10,000 pounds of downforce, and it's trying to pick the nose up out there. The clutch is coming to it. Your vision gets really blurry. So the middle of the racetrack is always a challenge, you know, as far as seeing where you're at and kind of figuring out where the car's
probably
at.
kind of sketchy sometimes.
It really is, yeah.
Like,
And then you know, in a Fuel Funny car too, the clutch is in front of you, so it looks like a sandstorm going off from all the clutch dust, and you know, you're blowing it out of your nose and getting it out of your ears, and all the things that you know, kind of make it cool to drive a funny car. But like, it's just I figured if clutch dust hasn't killed John Force by now, I'm going to be okay. You know?
Right.
So,
I think all of us, we've all at some point like inhaled those things, like eaten all sorts of fluids and all sorts of stuff. So I think it probably just makes us all stronger, honestly, at the end of the day.
It helps that immune system.
Exactly, it does. So that's that's a really cool note to obviously end on. So for the people at home, if you guys don't have plans this weekend, you should head out to Gainesville Raceway. You can catch Matt Hagan and his fellow competitors and so much more at Gator Nationals this weekend.
Absolutely, and I think, you know, this was one of those races that sell out. So if you haven't got your tickets, go ahead and get them, snag them quick, because it goes fast. One thing I wanted to say is thank you to all of our fans. Our fans, they go out here and support the Mobile Ones and the Dodges, and they buy the Hellcats, and they do all this stuff. And not just my sponsors, but all the sponsors that are involved in the sports. We can't do it without the fans. It costs so much money to run these cars. So thank you guys for supporting our sponsors, and we love our fans, and let's keep growing this sport.